Was there maybe a track on the album that was kind of the catalyst for what would come after and what would form the album? Maybe the first song that you wrote, or?
I'm trying to think. I think. What do you think? I'm trying to. I think like the one that's very different on the album is called "The Dying Hymns of Life." It's more like a bit like a ballady type track. But I'd say, I suppose that wasn't really the mark for the album. I know a lot of the stuff we wrote for Darkness Will Rise was kind of older stuff, because we've had up till now to, this is like our sort of back catalogue of all of our ideas. The EP was kind of a 3-track like sort of snippet of what we had we'd done previously. Darkness Will Rise, it's got some pretty old riffs and stuff on there, like we'd revisited and sort of redeveloped and stuff like that. I mean, we played. I'm trying to think if there's like a particular song which sort of set off the mark.
Or maybe a moment in the studio.
I think when we wrote Salem's Fate, actually our latest single, I think
that was the first one that we sort of all wrote together, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As a band, so that was obviously really, really cool to be involved with that, because obviously that was the last one to come in, and it's just sort of everything developed from that song, and
so I think that sort of set the bar, didn't it?
Yeah, set the bar.
Can you take me through that process then? Well, was it just starting with it as a kind of a jam session type of thing, and then
these guys, I think George and Dan, they just got this really, really heavy verse riff, I think it was, and I was just sort of jamming along with them, and it sort of spiraled into this thing, and then we were like, oh, what could come next? And then we're like, let's just jam something, see what comes out. And then sort of something would come out, and then we're like, okay, maybe we'll change this bit, maybe we'll do this, and then we just ended up with a song, really.
Yeah, easy as that.
And can I assume then that the lyrics are your thing and Dan's thing, or is that a collective thing as well?
Yeah, that was myself who wrote the lyrics for Salem's Fate, yeah.
Do you remember where they came from or what sparked it?
I had the idea of the Salem witch trials in my head for a little while anyway, just because it's quite a cool concept, and it's a sort of big epic story, and it actually happened, and it's quite crazy really when you think about it. So I just started doing a bit of research on it and reading up, and also I just liked the idea of the visuals you can create, which is why another reason why we wanted to release it as a single, because it's quite cool to try and recreate that sort of imagery,
Right.
And also Salem's Fate was a pretty good sort of representation of the band. I think it's got a bit of everything in the track. That's why we ended up going with that.
And you mentioned that part of the album were a little bit older songs. So how important this is gonna sound weird maybe, but how important is a debut album to kind of as a barometer of where you are?
I think the debut, or obviously for everyone, the debut album is kind of like you can have stuff from like backdated, like right from when you started as a band basically. So it's like it's good to have that opportunity to sort of, I don't know, let the songs breathe, and if you need to change anything later on, then because we kind of did that with a few of them. They were quite different from when they were first written to how they ended up on the album, and I guess you don't really have that opportunity with like every album after that. It's kind of just like this, every year or two, and that's it, and it's like more of a sort of snapshot in that time frame, whereas the first album is kind of a bit of a back catalogue from up till from when you started.
So can you yourself hear a difference from certain songs on the album? Like you say they've changed a lot, but can you still hear a difference in songwriting?
I think I don't know. I'm trying to think from when some of the songs, like how they changed from the start. I don't know. We've definitely got more mature in our songwriting, I think, because I think so anyway. But yeah, we've I don't know, just kind of went back and really sort of listened to the tracks, and we're like, you know what, I don't think, like I said before about sort of setting the bar high. It was like these songs need to be as good as the rest of them. And some of them were kind of the bits we liked them. We're kind of, it's almost like we got used to them because we were playing for them for such a long time, and then it just took that time to kind of realise, you know what, this is actually not quite as good as it could be. So we sort of dissected it and was like messed around with some of the tracks, and I think it's for the better, basically.
The album is called Darkness Will Rise. There's a track on that with the same name.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reason this became the album title?
It just kind of fit in with the whole theme we were going for. Darkness Will Rise is related to the band's name, the Raven Age, which is derived from the Tower of London. So historically, ravens were drawn to the Tower of London because of the executions were going on, the blood which they feed on, and they became like guardians of the tower. Like the legend was that if the ravens were to ever leave, then the British Empire would fall. So Darkness Will Rise is almost like the rise of the ravens. The darkness represents the ravens, and the rise is like them sort of realising their potential, and they sort of have to be there, otherwise the British Empire will fall. So it's also like a metaphor for the band kind of taking our first steps into our career as well. So it just fit well.
And well, you mentioned Salem's Fate, the imagery and the historical context, and then with Darkness Will Rise as well. So how much of yourself do you put in songs? Are there songs that are autobiographical, or do you write in that way?
Yeah, there are. I mean, it's all metaphorical stuff, but there are more sort of personal ones. And for instance, Promised Land, like the first main track on the album is more of a personal one, but you probably might not be able to tell that from listening to it. It's just more about the actual journey of going through from being a musician and sort of the uncertainty.
Right.
Because, it's kind of going through a time where everyone around me was sort of moving ahead and getting successful, and I've kind of still got this dream of being a musician, but there's no guarantee that you're going to make it there, and you have to give everything you have. Otherwise, you have to kind of give everything you have to give yourself the best opportunity of getting there. That's kind of the idea of Promised Land. And there's a few on there which are a bit more personal to myself.
But this is interesting because, well, obviously, being in the music business is a tricky business. So did you talk with your father about it, how he experienced it in his early days, and kind of went through what you're going through now?
Yeah, definitely. He always says it's almost like reliving it, like hearing the stories of what's going on with us, and he was just like, it really reminds him of when Maiden were going through the same thing. Trying to get yourself a plan B together, basically, in case it doesn't quite work out. But I think Maiden got signed a bit before I think he was like 23 when they got signed, and it started sort of on the rise. So dragging behind a few years.
but then again, the landscape, I suppose, is different as well. In the 80s, it was kind of where hard rock and metal started booming. Yeah. So how do you see the musical landscape now? Because there is a very healthy hard rock metal scene. So I don't like that word, but it isn't as dominant as it maybe once was. So how do you perceive it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's this, especially internet stuff. There's just so many bands out there, like, who just can display their music to the whole world like in an instant. It kind of I don't know, it makes it tougher to break through, I think. Definitely being a band these days.
So many bands. Like, you have SoundCloud and Spotify. Any band can put their song on iTunes. It doesn't require too much. It just requires a bit of money, and you can get it on. So it's hard to, everyone's competing against each other to try and make it, and then you only have a limited amount of venues in certain places. So how many gigs can you get? It's very difficult. It's
also and like you said, because these genres back then were like kind of a new thing, and it was a bit more of a craze, and I'd say a little bit more exciting probably back then. So it's more difficult to be something different as well. You don't really want to copy the bands that have done it, sort of 20, 30 years ago.
Sure.
I think with us, we're obviously influenced by some more modern metal, but we decided to stick with clean vocals just to try and be a bit different. We didn't want to kind of copy the people that we looked up to, basically.
Mm-hmm. And finally then, and I always ask this when I interview somebody who has a famous relative. So do you think? But do you think it was in hindsight a good thing or bad thing in a way that your father was this big rock icon?
Well, it's good in the terms that he's taught me a lot. He's always given me really great advice and stuff, and motivation, and also just sort of reassures that that's all these things that are, if stuff's going wrong or it's not going anywhere, he kind of reassures me. He said, don't worry, like, blah, 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 this has happened to me, this is, it's good to have that, someone who's been through it, basically, because for most people it's, a totally sort of alien thing to their family members or whatever. But and obviously, you know, we were able to go and support Iron Maiden last year, which is absolutely incredible for the band, like our profile and us as musicians. Yeah, I suppose the only negative side of it is that people seem to, I don't know, get a bit funny about it sometimes and sort of think, you know, have some sort of preconception before they listen to your band, which is not good. I mean, ideally you want someone to have no idea, just listen to the band, have a clear mind and decide whether they like the music or not, rather than think, oh, they're only getting there because of this reason or whatever, you know. So that's the only negative thing, but I'll just ignore all that stuff anyway.
Well, one more thing which just kind of came into me. Usually when younger people at certain age, they start to rebel against their parents. So was there a time when you rebelled against, well, because your father was already a rock and roller in a way, so did you rebel by going into hip hop or something completely different?
No, not really. I was never into stuff like hip hop, and I never really had like much of a rebellion. I guess like from the age of like 14 to 16, I just become, I don't know, a bit of an arsehole. But like, I think I was never that bad. I was not really kind of, you know, going off and drinking and doing drugs or anything like that. It was just more of like a, I don't know, a general sort of rebellious against your parents type thing.
So, but not in terms of music?
Not in terms of music, okay, really. No, I kind of just stuck with what I like. I mean, I think I had my cousin Joe to thank for a lot of my musical upbringing. He's always showing me new bands and stuff like that, and got me into a lot of the bands, which became my sort of favourites and stuff like that.
Okay. Guys, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much. No worries.
Thank you.